How do we have the healthiest soils and in turn the healthiest vegetables and crops? Hi, I'm Dan from Foundation Zambia, and today we're going to talk about the third principle of regenerative agriculture, crop rotations.
The rotation of crops in the vegetable garden is very crucial. Within Foundations for Farming, we have divided the different vegetables into 4 rotational groups. These are Group 1, green leafies, cabbages, cauliflowers, Chinese cabbages, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, kohlrabi, turnips, mustard, rape and kale. Group 2, root crops, carrots, beetroot, parsnips. Also added to this group, onions, garlic, cucumbers, pumpkins, squashes, melons and marrows. Group 3, fruiting vegetable, tomatoes, potatoes, peppers, chilies and brinjal. Also added to this group, lettuce and spinach. Group 4, legumes, peas and beans. These 4 groups are rotated one after the other within the vegetable garden. An example of this would be to start with green leafies in one bed of the first season, and then when that crop is done, it would be followed by a crop from the legume group. That would then be followed by a crop from the fruiting group, then a root crop, and only then back to the green leafies. This rotation plan allows for greater control of pest and disease pressure.
Crop rotations can help us in a number of ways. Today we're just going to talk about 2 of those ways. One is that it restores fertility to our soils. You know, if we grow maize in the same spot year after year after year, or let's say cabbage in our gardens in the same spot year after year after year, then our soils will become depleted in the nutrients that those particular things extract from the soil. And if we want to continue growing vegetables there, or those same vegetables, we'll be tempted to just keep piling on the artificial chemicals, and our soils will continue to be poorer and poorer. But God has provided some amazing crops and vegetables, and even things that we don't eat, that will restore and strengthen our soils. So for example, if you plant maize in this spot this year, you should definitely not plant it again next year. Maize is what we call a heavy feeder. It is hungry for nitrogen and other nutrients as well, but nitrogen is one of the largest draws that it makes on the soil. And so if we continually plant maize year after year, we're going to deplete the soil of nitrogen. But thankfully there are many crops that we can plant there that actually fix nitrogen from the air and put it into the soil. Those crops are pigeon pea, soya, groundnuts, or this sun hemp, which I'm standing next to. Even though we don't eat sun hemp is a powerful nitrogen fixer, and also it produces a wonderful amount of mulch, and these legumes that we've been talking about, the soya and the groundnuts, they don't, when we rotate our crops, it doesn't just help by putting nutrients into our soil, but every crop rather interacts with the life in the soil in a different way. And so that variety is extremely helpful for our soil to be healthy, and in turn for our plants to be healthy. If we're in the garden and we are growing cabbage this year, no, we definitely shouldn't grow cabbage in the same spot next year. Another vegetable like beans or peas will provide that same benefit because those are also legumes. The other way that crop rotations helps us is that it breaks the cycle of pests and disease. When it comes to pests and diseases, you know, as farmers, we want to confuse these pests. We want to make life difficult for them. If you've got a maize plant here and a stalk borer comes and eats your maize, after it's finished, eventually it's going to lay some eggs so that it can continue in years to come. And it's laying those eggs there because it's found a good food source. And it's thinking, if I lay these eggs here and the eggs hatch, my children will have a good food source. So we want to make life difficult, and we want to take that maize and move it far away so that when those eggs hatch, they're confused. They don't have a good food source, and the population of pests will decrease rather than increase. If we plant maize there year after year after year, we're basically just providing these pests with a ready food source for their population to increase. Here at Foundation Zambia, we've been researching ways to integrate this legume, pigeon pea, into a maize growing system. What we've done this year is we planted our maize into basins dug right next to pigeon pea, which we planted the year before. So the pigeon pea, the whole previous year, has been growing and has been putting nitrogen into our soil, and also breaking up any hard pans with its large, deep taproot. And this year, when we planted the maize, we used compost, which we'll be talking about soon. And we put compost in those planting basins. And then when the maize grew a little bit, after about 4 weeks, we actually took some of the leaves of the pigeon pea, quite a few leaves actually, and made a pile of these leaves right at the base of the maize. And those leaves actually decomposed, and they're chock full of nitrogen. So what we've actually done is actually top dressed our maize with pigeon pea leaves. And as a result, we've been able to grow very healthy maize with a 75% reduction in our normal fertilizer usage. We hope you've enjoyed this episode and learned one way that you can bring life back to your soils. Feel free to leave a comment below or visit us at our website, foundationszambia.org.